MG42. Why was this machine gun called Hitler's Buzzsaw? It sounded like hell itself had opened. American GIs knew the scream. It was the MG42. Its terrifying rate of fire earned it the nickname Hitler's Buzzsaw. But this was more than just fear. This was a weapon that redefined battlefield standards. Introduced in 1942 as a faster, cheaper, and more reliable successor to the MG34, the MG42 was built for lethality. It fired up to 1,500 rounds per minute, twice as fast as the American Browning M1919. That meant a single gun could blanket an advancing company in seconds. We thought hundreds of shooters were coming at us. It was just one MG42. It cut us down like wheat. Sergeant, U.S. 1st Infantry Division, Normandy, June 1944. The MG42's design was both genius and pragmatic. It was stamped rather than machined, which allowed for mass production. Over 400,000 units were made during the war, not counting post-war variants. Its belt-fed system and rapid barrel change, less than 10 seconds under fire, made it not only deadly, but also combat resilient. That shriek? It wasn't a gun, it was a meat grinder. You were terrified before you even saw the barrel. British Corporal, Battle of Caen. The MG42 in tactical doctrine. This wasn't a bunker weapon. It was the centerpiece of the German infantry squad. The team revolved around it. Ammo bearers, flank protection, movement. Even outnumbered, German squads could hold off larger forces with just one MG42. It proved devastating in North Africa, where sand and heat crippled Allied weapons. On the Eastern Front, in dense forests and chaotic Soviet assaults, the MG42 became a weapon of suppression like no other. Our attacks died before they began. That sound up ahead, we called it death. Red Army veteran, Kursk, 1943. Chambered for 7.92 by 57 mm Mauser, its ammo had excellent penetration and long-range accuracy. The gun could dominate in both offense and defense, halting counterattacks or covering infantry advances. It was mounted not only on bipods and tripods, but on tanks, trucks, motorcycles, and anti-aircraft rigs. In low-altitude defense, its fire density could shred aircraft. The MG42 legacy. The MG42 wasn't just a weapon of its era, it set the standard. After 1945, it didn't vanish, it evolved. The MG1, chambered for NATO 7.62 by 51 mm, followed. Then came the MG3, still in service in over 30 countries today, from Germany and Italy to Turkey and Pakistan. The MG3, still the same MG42, just renamed and reloaded. It outlived its war. Oberst Heinz Leibinger, Bundeswehr, its influence spread eastward. Soviet engineers learned from captured MG42s, borrowing its quick change barrel and belt feed principles. Even the American M60, adopted in 1957, bears traces of its DNA. We hated it, but we respected it. If we had it, we'd have used it. U.S. veteran, Normandy. In Operation Market Garden, a pair of MG42 crews held off an entire British company at Arnhem Bridge. That kind of firepower changed the game, tactically and psychologically. You hear the MG42, you don't advance. You find cover. Even tank crews felt vulnerable. Radio operator Sherman Firefly, 11th Armored Division, a weapon that changed tactics and culture. The MG42 shaped modern warfare. It birthed the concept of base of fire dominance. NATO infantry doctrine still revolves around a single gun team suppressing the enemy. It's that impactful. You've heard its sound in movies like Saving Private Ryan and Enemy at the Gates. That whine? It's war's scream. It's not just a sound, it's the voice of war. Screenwriter Steven Zaillian. But there's a dark side. The MG42 was a near-perfect weapon in the service of evil. It was used for occupation, suppression, and mass killing. That paradox makes it an icon of both engineering brilliance and moral complexity. And yet, the legend endures. 80 years later, its design is still relevant. Its sound still commands respect at reenactments and military schools. The MG42 isn't just a machine gun, it's the voice of a war we can't forget. Dr. Johannes Boltz, weapons historian. Kar98k, the rifle that survived hell. It didn't fire in bursts, it didn't hold 10 rounds, and it didn't forgive mistakes when reloading. But it became a symbol of survival. In trenches, in snow, in the dust of advancing tanks, where everything broke down, it kept firing. Karabiner 99 Kurz, Kar98k, the rifle that survived hell. It started with the Gewehr 89, Germany's standard rifle since 1898. Long, heavy, built for 19th century warfare. It served through World War I, but for modern combat, it was outdated. Between the wars, German gunsmiths didn't start from scratch. They refined what already worked. The Gewehr 98 was shortened, rebalanced, simplified. In 1935, the Kar98k was born, kurz, meaning short. It quickly became the Wehrmacht's standard issue rifle. This was no compromise. The Kar98k was built with engineering discipline. Every line, every part, designed for mud, blood, and ice. Its core was the legendary Mauser bolt, straight, strong, and reliable. It locked with a sharp click. It cycled clean even when dry. It worked when oil froze solid. You didn't baby this rifle. The bolt could be slammed open with your palm and shut with your fist. It loaded from the top using a stripper clip. 5 rounds, 7.92 by 57 millimeter Mauser. A powerful cartridge, flat shooting, deadly out to 600 meters, over 1,000 with a sniper optic. It weighed around 4 kilos, about 9 pounds. Heavy? Yes, but that weight gave it stability, and stability meant accuracy. The stock was hard wood, usually beech or walnut, sometimes with a notch for a bayonet. You could thrust with it, or smash a helmet in close quarters. The iron sights were calibrated up to 2,000 meters. Realistically, 600 was the effective range, but in the right hands, it reached further, especially with the ZF-39 scope. Not every rifle had optics. Sniper Kar98ks were hand-selected, fitted one by one. No mass production shortcuts. Standard rifles came from dozens of factories. Germany, Austria, Czechoslovakia, occupied Poland, each one stamped with a code, BIF, DOT, BNZ, so enemy intelligence wouldn't know the source. Later models got even more interesting. Some had the simplified ZF-41 scope. Some were fitted for rifle grenades. Some used stamped parts instead of milled steel. Faster to build, still dependable. Despite cost cuts, Kar98s held together, even in the chaos of 1945. Troops called it simply the Kar. No nickname, no poetry, just trust. The Kar98k marched across every front. Poland, France, Russia, North Africa, the Ardennes. You could bury it in mud, pull it out 2 days later, and fire. Drop it in a stream, dry it near a fire, and shoot again. On the Eastern Front, temperatures dropped below -40 degrees Celsius. Lubricants turned to glue. Soldiers ran rifles dry. The Kar kept working, bolt stiff, but not stuck. Compared to the Soviet Mosin-Nagant, the Kar was shorter, better balanced, more accurate, and easier to operate. In the swampy trenches of Kursk, tanks got stuck, but Kar98k shots still found their mark, from under floorboards, off a trench wall. She never failed. American GIs in Normandy noticed something. German rifles rusted slower, stocks didn't swell, barrels held zero. Let's compare versus the Mosin-Nagant 9130. Both hit hard, but Mosin bolts were rougher, slower to cycle. Kar ran smoother. Versus the Lee Enfield No. 4. The British rifle was faster, but Kar was simpler and more rugged under field conditions. Versus the M1 Garand, the Garand was semi-automatic and deadly when clean. But in dust and rain, it jammed. Kar didn't. Garand shot faster, but when it jammed, the Kar kept going. One shot, one hit. Veterans said it best. The Kar was the last thing we could count on. Machine guns jammed, grenades failed, but the Kar fired every time. By 1943, German factories were rushing production. Milled parts were replaced with stamped ones. Fancy finishes were gone. The bolt handle turned angular. Washers swapped for bent springs, but it still fired, still hit, still worked. One German engineer said, "If a soldier can strip his rifle in the dark, he'll survive with it." The Kar stripped easily. Its bolt was intuitive. Its spring didn't fly apart. its parts didn't jam. And after the war, the Kar didn't disappear. Israel used them in 1948. Czechoslovakia kept them into the 60s. France issued them in colonial wars. Many were rebarreled, restocked, rebranded, but the core stayed the same. Even today, Kar-98s pop up in Africa, in rural militias, in hunting lodges, and in the hands of collectors. Because this rifle was more than a weapon. It was a machine built with purpose and pride. It wasn't designed to impress or to win medals. It was designed to survive. When others jammed, it fired. When others froze, it moved. When the war got ugly, it held the line. Kar-98k didn't change the course of history. It just refused to stop. It outlived an empire, outlasted the front lines, and still today, it lives. Reliable, unshaken, survivor. Mosin-Nagant, the sniper legend of World War II. It was a simple rifle, wood, steel, nothing fancy. But in the hands of a skilled shooter, it became a deadly tool. The Mosin-Nagant, a symbol of Soviet snipers and a true legend of World War II. Let's go back to the beginning. The Russian army needed a new rifle, urgently. France had already introduced smokeless powder. Russia was behind. A competition was held. The result? A hybrid design, part Russian, part Belgian. Captain Mosin's mechanism combined with elements from Nagant. The result? The 1891 three-line rifle. Three-line referred to the old Russian measurement, 7.62 millimeters. It saw action in the Russo-Japanese War, then World War I, but its true test was yet to come. By the late 1930s, the rifle was shortened and improved. The Model 1930 was born, and then the legendary sniper version with a PU scope. So, what made it deadly? First, simplicity. Only 5 moving parts in the bolt. Fewer parts meant fewer failures. In mud, in snow, in ice, it kept firing. Second, range and accuracy. Iron sights, 500 meters, with optics, up to 800. And in rare cases, confirmed hits at over 1,200 meters. That's farther than most Allied rifles could reach. Then came the PU scope. Simple, rugged, compact, mounted with a 3-point bracket on the side of the receiver. You could remove it, clean it, put it back. It stayed zeroed, only 3.5 times magnification, but a wide field of view. And in battle, that meant survival. The bolt, straight, cock on open, rock solid, not fast. But a sniper doesn't need speed. He needs reliability and precision. Production came from multiple factories: Tula, Izhevsk, Novosibirsk. Even under bombing raids, machine tools were evacuated and restarted in Siberia. Within 2 months, rifles were coming off the line. Each batch went through a kind of battlefield testing. The barrels that grouped under 80 millimeters at 100 meters were selected for sniper models. The rifle was deadly in the right hands. Vasily Zaitsev, Stalingrad's ghost. 225 confirmed kills. When the war ended, they offered to put his rifle in a museum. He refused. "Let it keep working," he said. Women snipers used it too, like Lyudmila Pavlichenko, with 309 confirmed kills. Even though the rifle weighed over 9 pounds and stretched over 50 inches, they crawled with it for miles, waited for hours in the snow. And when the time came, they never missed. Fun fact, none of its parts required complex tools. Even the cleaning rod could be made in a basic workshop. The Mosin-Nagant was built for war. Total war. Another detail, rarely mentioned. The rifle produced almost no barrel whip after firing. Thanks to the thick wooden stock and tight receiver fit, vibrations were minimal. That meant consistent accuracy, even without optics. In Stalingrad, at Kursk, in Leningrad, the Mosin-Nagant was everywhere, in forests, in ruins, in open fields, sometimes even in close combat. Some snipers removed the scope, fixed the bayonet, and used it like a spear. Here's a trick few people know. Some Soviet snipers fired with the left bolt cover closed, blocking the sun's reflection on the lens. The enemy couldn't spot the shooter, only the hit. Compared to others, the Springfield M1903, precise but heavy and expensive. The German Mauser 98k, strong but disliked freezing temperatures. The Mosin, brutal, crude, but it always worked. A survivor's weapon, a hunter's tool, and in the hands of a sniper, a scalpel. The war ended. Europe was rubble. Empires collapsed. But one rifle kept going, the Mosin-Nagant. It wasn't retired. It was reassigned to a new war, the Cold War. Production continued into the 1950s. Even with the SKS and AK entering service, the Mosin remained reliable, familiar, cheap. In Korea, from 1950 to 1953, Chinese and North Korean snipers used it, sometimes with original PU scopes, sometimes with crude copies. American GIs recalled, "We never saw the guy, just the shot, and someone dropped." Later, Vietnam. In jungle ambushes, Viet Cong snipers used it from swamps, trees, and holes. At 200 to 300 meters, it was still deadly. In humidity that jammed modern rifles, the Mosin fired clean. U.S. troops nicknamed it the Loud Shadow. The bullet hit before they heard the shot. Then came Afghanistan, 1979 to 1989. Mujahideen fighters used Mosins from the Tsar's time. Some captured from Soviets, others bought on the black market. In mountain passes, it was perfect. Soviet soldiers feared the sound, especially in canyons, where echoes distorted direction. Then Africa, Angola, Mozambique, Somalia. Thousands of Mosins sent via Cuba, East Germany, Czechoslovakia. Some were modified, local stocks, custom scopes, even shortened barrels. One is still kept in Havana, engraved with "Hasta la Victoria Siempre." In Latin America, the rifle armed guerrillas, Peru, Nicaragua, Colombia. In 1980s footage, it's seen in the hands of Sandinistas. And in Chile, after the 1973 coup, it was used to guard universities. Then, Yugoslavia in the 90s. Sniper duels between Serbs and Bosnians. Some used vintage PU optics, others modern scopes. But the rifle? Still the same. So why didn't it disappear? Because it still worked. It stayed accurate. And the 7.6 2x54R round? It punched through wood, brick, even concrete. In the 2000s, the Mosin got a second life as a hunting rifle. In the US, Canada, Europe, it flooded gun shows and collector forums. People added modern stocks, bipods, recoil pads, and optics. But the soul of the rifle remained. It still shot true. Some elite forces, like those in North Korea or Iran, still keep Mosins in reserve. In Pyongyang, they train urban snipers with it, because in a concrete battlefield, you need silence, stability, and trust. Today, more than 130 years since it was born, the Mosin-Nagant is still in combat. In the Middle East, in African civil wars, in the hands of rebels, hunters, collectors. It served three worlds: Tsarist, Soviet, post-Soviet. In every generation, snipers said the same thing: if it's a Mosin, it won't fail you. That's why it's more than just a weapon. It's part of history, part of fate, and a legend that still fires. America surprised Japan with the powerful M1 Garand rifle during World War II. This video is intended solely for educational and documentary purposes. It contains no ideological or political stance. This was the weapon that changed the game. A symbol of industrial might, and a nightmare for the enemy, in the jungle, on the slopes, in the trenches. The M1 Garand, a semi-automatic rifle that American soldiers held with such confidence. The enemy could feel it. At a time when automatic weapons were still reserved for elite units, the United States put the Garand in the hands of every infantryman. The Japanese weren't prepared. In the Pacific, they were used to bolt-action rifles from the British, carbines from the Dutch, but not to a rifle firing at this speed. An American pulled the trigger, and the Garand fired, again and again. No need to reload after every shot, no pause, no mercy. A Japanese soldier had to manually work the bolt, chamber around, then aim and fire again. It was a clash between eras, early 20th century doctrine versus the industrial acceleration of America. The rifle weighed about 9.5 pounds. It fired the powerful .30-06 Springfield cartridge. Muzzle velocity, up to 2,800 feet per second. It had an 8-round en-bloc clip. Firing rate, up to 40 rounds per minute. Compare that to the Japanese Arisaka Type 99, their standard infantry rifle, just 5 rounds, and bolt action. But most of all, it was about reaction time. When every second counted, the Garand delivered an edge, not in drills, not on paper, but in real combat, in the caves of Okinawa, the jungles of Luzon, the volcanic sands of Iwo Jima. This is what the Japanese said in intercepted reports. They have weapons that don't need to be cycled. The shooting never stops. Our men fall without even knowing where the shots are coming from. That's not a rifle. That's an automatic, and they all have one. To many Japanese soldiers, the Garand seemed like something from the future. And American troops had a new kind of battlefield freedom. They could suppress, maneuver, react instantly, cover their buddies without hesitation. Now, imagine, mud, rain, sand, brutal heat, and the rifle keeps firing. No jamming, no misfire. Its gas-operated system was revolutionary. It didn't just push gas out, it controlled the recoil cycle and chambering of the next round. Engineer John Garand created a mechanism that could endure heat, abuse, and extreme conditions. In the U.S., he became a national hero. Captured Garands ended up in German hands. They took them apart. Reported to Berlin, brilliant design, impossible to mass produce at our scale. Even the Soviets tested the Garand. They admired its reliability, but concluded it was too expensive to build during wartime because this wasn't a rifle born of scarcity. It was forged in abundance of steel, factories, logistics. It wasn't just a soldier's weapon. It was a symbol of a nation's industrial supremacy. By 1941, over 600,000 Garands had been produced. By the end of the war, more than 4 million. In battle, the message was clear. If you had a Garand, you weren't outgunned. You were faster, more accurate, louder. This was felt on Guadalcanal, on Saipan, on Peleliu. In close combat, every shot could mean life or death. And there was one strange side effect: the ping sound. After the last shot, the Garand ejected its clip with a metallic ring. The enemy learned that sound meant the rifle was empty, so they rushed. But American soldiers adapted. They threw empty clips on purpose to trick the enemy into exposing themselves. And the ambush worked. The Garand wasn't just a weapon. It became part of the Army's character: confident, mobile, disciplined, a rifle of war, but also a symbol of a new era. It weighed just over 9 pounds, but in the hands of an infantryman, the M1 Garand became something much more than a tool. It was confidence, it was power, felt by every American soldier heading into battle. The firepower of a semi-automatic rifle offered an incredible advantage, especially up close. While a Japanese soldier manually cycled his Arisaka bolt, the American with a Garand could empty all 8 rounds in seconds. And those seconds were life and death. And then, the clip ejected with that famous sound. Ping. Everyone nearby heard it. The Japanese tried to use it. If they heard the ping, they charged, hoping to catch the American during reload. But even that became a trap. Americans learned to drop empty clips to bait their enemy out of cover and strike. The .306 Springfield round was a beast, powerful enough to punch through cover, wood, even light bunkers. Its effective range was 500 yards, with optics, even more. And when a skilled marksman held a Garand, it became a deadly force. The bullet's impact was brutal. Even against body armor, survival was rare. The Garand struck a rare balance, heavy enough to absorb recoil, but light enough to maneuver easily, in jungles, on hills, through ruined cities. It remained deadly. Its wooden stock, soldiers used it in close quarters. It could take dozens of blows and keep going. This weapon wasn't just gear, it became part of the soldier's identity. They gave it nicknames: the Warhammer, Silent Friend, Old Man Garand. On Pacific Islands, it became a nightmare for Japanese troops. Its distinct sound, the bolt cycling, the continuous fire, sowed fear. Bayonet charges made no sense against such rapid fire, and even in mud, moisture, and grime, the Garand kept shooting. Its reliability was legendary. Even caked in filth, even with a clogged bolt, it fired. American engineers had built a machine that barely needed care. Its gas system was so well balanced, even when overheated, the rifle didn't jam. And that saved lives. Compare it to other rifles. The British Lee Enfield was faster than the German Mauser, but still a bolt action. The Soviet Mosin-Nagant? Reliable, but crude and not always precise. Only the Garand offered semi-automatic fire as the standard. It was a shift, a revolution in tactics. Americans could hold waves of attackers, assault positions, fight for hours, without reloading every few seconds. The M1 Garand let infantry fight differently, bolder, smarter, stronger. It changed not just the battlefield, it changed the mindset. It became a symbol of technical dominance and a clear message that the United States came to this war to win. That's why it's in memorials today. That's why veterans still carry it at parades, and why it's studied in museums. The M1 Garand, more than a rifle, it's the voice of an era when the world shook with gunfire, and America held the weapon that never let them down.